Do you want to improve at a quicker pace? Check out GitGUDRacing.com. I've coached hundreds of drivers, from real-life racers to sim enthusiasts, who experience rapid improvement after just one session. And while investing in top-notch hardware is great, imagine how much more you can elevate your experience by adding coaching to the mix. My methods are practical, aiming to break down complex concepts into easily digestible bits that are simple to understand. You can find reviews of the sessions I've conducted on the Fiverr link provided in the video description. Let's elevate your racing skills together. Now for the track guide. For turn 1, what you want to do firstly is to align yourself to the white line here, but notice that at this point the track gets a bit wider on the left side and we want to use this space before turning into the corner. So you can cut a bit this grass right here while you're trying to get on the left side. It's not gonna be an off track, so cut it almost around this part like that, and then the goal will be to have the left tires all the way to the white line. So to open up the next right-hander as much as possible, this is gonna mean maybe 1/10 in this corner if you're gonna use this part of the track, and the moment that you start to turn in, maybe a slight moment later, you're gonna apply the brakes. You don't want to brake firstly with the wheel straight and then to turn in, because you will do a longer and a bigger distance with the steering wheel, with the steering angle while braking, and we want to minimize that. While braking, we want to have more grip for the turning and braking. If you're gonna brake on a straight line and then you're gonna turn and then you will also brake, then you will use more of the tires and you'll go past the grip limit possibly, or you will go a bit slower. So first turn in, then you're gonna start applying the brakes. And what's important here is that while you go into the corner, you maintain this low trail braking, like 10% trail braking. You can go a bit higher, like 15%. And you will be a bit earlier on throttle. So there are two different approaches here. You either stay longer on the brakes but in the lower percentages, something like what I'm doing here with 7% brakes, or you're gonna peak like 15%. It's gonna be a shorter brake shape, but then you're gonna be a bit earlier on throttle. In the end, the both approaches is gonna be the same thing. I've tried them. For me, it's more in control to keep the trail braking up until I feel like the car rotated. And at this point, there's a small compression zone on the inside, so definitely on the inside is a bit more grip. When you feel it in the tires, then you're gonna smash the throttle. You're gonna give it like 100% very quickly, and then the goal will be for the car to not track out very wide. Like this was not ideal. I lost a bit of time, like 0.003. So try to keep the car a bit more in the center left, let's say. So don't go all the way to the left side, keep it a bit more like here. It's gonna be in general a better line because you will use less steering angle to bring the car back on the center of the track. So you will keep the tires more in check, and also in terms of lap time, it will be just a slightly bit quicker. So that's turn 1. Now moving into the next corner, the blind right-hander, you want to align yourself very nicely in the beginning. So what I'm looking at while going uphill is this white line on the left side, because at some point the white line will start to go all the way on the left. You see, right now it's going straight, let's say, and now it's turning left. The moment that I see this kink in the white line, this one right here, is the moment that I turn more and more, because I want to be on entry, I want to be on this curve on the left side, like this one. I want to meet it early and I want to have the left tires on it. So aligning myself with the grass right here, not with the curb. It's gonna be very important to do it because the next corner, it's a blind corner, and every inch of the track that you're gonna use to open it up will make that corner a bit easier, because it's very easy in that corner to either pick the off track or to miss it and then obviously lose time, but also get that slowdown. So getting this curb nice and early, mounting it all the way, and you can see here from my previous laps this grass that's being used. So that's exactly what you should do. It won't be an off track if you barely touch the grass here, but you will feel it in the force feedback, you will feel it in the wheel, and it's a good thing to feel that you're a bit on the grass right here, just a tiny bit, because that's when you know that you really used all the track. And in terms of braking, the moment that you get on the curb, slightly afterwards, like 1/10 later, you can start already pressing the brakes. It's better to brake a bit earlier into the corner and softer and trailing for longer than to spike it very, very hard in the last moment. Just because whenever you're gonna be more on the brakes, you will have a bit more control. So even though we might give up like 0.05 on entry or maybe 1/10 in some corners, now I'm speaking and I'm trying to make it like a broad approach, you will be more in control overall and you will feel a bit more relaxed on entry because you can point the car as you want instead of spiking it in the last moment and then having no choice than to follow the specific line where the car is going. Obviously, when we're trying to go at the very limit, that's gonna be the better way, like to give it that break in the last moment and the car to not have any choice than that specific line, because that's gonna be the very close to the edge limit of grip. But whenever you're doing a race, you have to give a bit of margin. So unless you're not pushing for a qualifying lap, I would suggest braking the moment that you find this curb, and don't brake very hard. I'm braking right now with 26%, which is a very low braking considering the speed that you're going in, but you're also going a bit uphill, so that this helps you with the braking as well. And in terms of turning in, you're gonna turn in at the end of the curve. Like whenever you find this yellow right here, you will start to give the first turn in. So when you see the yellow fading, you give the first turn in. Basically right now the front end of the car is at the end of the curve, so the end of the curve is going to be the reference for turn in. And while turning in, very important to keep the brakes applied up until you start to see the curb. So right now still holding the brakes, still holding, and right now when you see the curves, you will adjust the braking based on how much the car has rotated. If the car rotates too much and you risk to get off track, you will release the brakes and give it a blimp of throttle to induce some understeer. But if the car hasn't rotated yet enough and it looks like you're gonna miss the corner, you're gonna go a bit wider to the cones on the left, you're gonna keep more of the brakes applied to squeeze the last bit of rotation that you can get from the car. This is exactly what I'm doing because the car is not pointing really well right now. So I'm still holding the brakes, and at this moment on the curve, it's gonna be a good timing to go back on throttle in general, even if the car is not rotating enough, you still want to be on throttle around here, because otherwise you will lose a lot of time, since you need to carry the momentum into this downhill part of the track, going on the power, and the car will get pushed all the way to this curb. That's fine. It's better to get pushed here. This means you carry a lot of speed rather than taking more cautiously and not even touching the curb. So if you go all the way to the grass, even though you'll cover a bit more distance with the steering wheel, it's still gonna be okay. You will carry a lot of speed to make up for that. Now for this downhill section, it's an easy section, but it's also very easy to scrub speed and lose like a tenth. So the first thing that you have to do is position the car all the way to this curb. You want to touch it, and the moment that you touch the curb, since this is a blind corner going down, it's an easy corner, but it's still a blind corner, and if you're gonna turn a bit later, you will scrub speed, especially in this night setting in which you don't really see it. So it's even more difficult, because if it was sunny, you would still have a bit of glimpse of how the road unfolds. But the moment that you're gonna hit the curb, you're gonna start turning in. It's better to turn in early than later here, because you want to meet this curb again very early and use it. So name of the game here is less steering angle everywhere in this section. you will try to use the least amount of steering angle on the steering wheel in order to avoid scrapping speed. That's exactly what you're gonna do in the next corner right here, this one. You're gonna mount the curb, and this is the short variant of Road Atlanta. Right now the track goes all the way to the right and will be on the long straight. So very important to be all the way to the white line here. Even use this grass a bit, it won't be an off track, so that you can cut a bit more, because at the end of the kink you will start turning in and giving it a blimp of the brake. So right now, as you can see, there's a kink here. This is gonna be your reference. Whenever the white line goes from straight to a bit on the left and you have this part here, that's gonna be your reference for braking, but you want to be all the way to the left when doing it, and you just barely gonna touch the brakes. It's like 5-10% braking at max. Let's see what I'm using. I'm using 5, not even dropping the throttle to 0. So you can argue that you can do it with just a lift instead. I didn't try it. I think the brakes is gonna give you the rotation though, so you can try also with the lift, but probably you will still need a bit of brakes. And you have to look on the right side, because you want to keep this right hander very tight. You don't want to go all the way to the left. So what I'm doing here is I'm staying very tight to the curb on the left and then taking it like this. So if you find yourself that you're going to the cones on the left side, that's a very wide line, and that's gonna lose you lap time, because you will cover longer distance. So very important to apex around this curb whenever the curb ends and the grass ends right here. Like, this is a very good apex point. This is what you should look for. And in terms of going back on throttle, that should happen earlier than the apex. So the MRP, so to speak, is around here. It's very early, because the car can still carry this momentum, just because this is a cambered corner and you have a lot of grip on the inside to make the corner. So because of the mechanical grip and because that you have to travel a shorter distance, you will be very early on throttle. The brakes will feel like just a blimp. It will be like an instant like this, and then you're gonna be back on power. You're gonna use this curb and you're gonna stay on throttle and keeping very tight right here, just following the white line. You can even cut a bit the grass while doing it. So here, for example, you can cut a bit just to travel the shorter distance with the least amount of steering angle. Now we're going into the last section of the track. The braking point will be after the first white line. So we have the first white line on the track here. I'm braking very closely to the second one. It's important here under braking to not drop the brakes very quickly. So you will fight to keep the pressure on, because if you're gonna brake this late, you have to avoid dropping the brakes too quickly. Otherwise the car will slide a bit into the corner, will understeer a bit. This happens to some extent in my lap as well. So I dropped the brakes a bit too quickly here and the car slided a bit. But very important, this is going to be a highlight. You have to touch this curb and cut it as much as you can. The moment that you hit the curb, you're going to put the power on and you will try to cut this one as well. And here you will judge your laps in terms of blending the inputs, having no gap in between the brake and the throttle, and doing the smallest lift here for this corner right here, this lift. If you minimize it, you will find that you will get lap time more and more. So you will look at blending the inputs and minimizing this lift under throttle. And right now it's just an easy flat. It's just that you will have to apex a bit later, so meeting the curb a bit later, so you won't track out wide and use all the track on the exit. But in short, that's a track guide of the GR86 at Road Atlanta, the short variant. I hope you have a great week ahead, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.